Hello everybody, how's it going? This is Jason from Stray Basilisk back again with another coding stream. Today we're going to be finishing off this nice little rhythm game that we started not last week, actually it was 2 weeks ago. So we had an unexpected week off last week, but we are back. And as voted for in our Twitter poll, we're going to continue with this rhythm game. I'm hoping in a fairly short stream tonight, maybe even less than an hour and a half or so, we can get this polished up and nice and to a kind of finished state. So what are we doing? We are making a rhythm game in the style of Guitar Hero, where we have these kind of tracks, and now we have 3, and little nodes which kind of come down these, move towards the player, and then when you reach a certain line, the idea is that you hit the corresponding button to each of these things. Right now the way I've got this mapped is like a left arrow, down arrow, and right arrow, but you know, you could use a controller or anything else, some crazy MIDI guitar or drum device if you have one to hand. Yeah, so these things kind of come down in the stream, and based on the timing, you know, if you hit it straight on, then you get, it's like a perfect hit and you get loads of points. If you're a little bit off, you hit it maybe here, then you get less points, and if you're way out, then it's like a fail. It's a miss, you know, it's a miss completely and you don't get any points there at all. Yeah, so this is the basic setup we're working with, and if you didn't catch us last week, I'm going to quickly run through the code and what we've got working already and kind of how that works and all of that stuff. So right now you can see we're at a stage where the very, very basic core features of the game are there and working. So I'm going to slam my keyboard keys so you can kind of hear this through the mic. So we have this very basic thing working. We are loading a song, we're displaying these notes, they're moving, and we can detect the inputs and stuff in time. In fact, I think if I pull up my little to-do list from last time, this is kind of where we got to. And we kind of began a bit of this data entry for the notes. But the basic steps to this, how should we go through this? You know what, if I put it up in the corner, way up in the corner, then we can kind of see this the whole time. Zoom out a bit. Too much fiddling. There's a key to make this like kind of full screen. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so let's kind of walk through the code that we have, add some comments, and see how it corresponds to this checklist and the stuff that we've managed to do already. So the first thing was to load and play audio. And the way that works is that in processing, there is a library called sound. So we just import that library and it then defines this sound file class for us. So we can just have a variable to keep track of the sound file. There's only one we have to worry about for the time being. So there's that. We load it in just like this. It's a little bit untidy right now. Yeah, so we load the file in. We ended up having to use a WAV file because MP3 and OGG, despite being nice and small and compressed, didn't really work very well for us with this library. Probably my mistake. There's probably a way to make it work, but we just went with the easiest path. Just loading a WAV file in, even though it's like 80 meg or something. You know, it works fine. Computers are powerful. Hard drives are cheap. Well, 80 megs of storage is cheap. Yeah, then the other thing that we load in is this track data file. So we've defined our own little data format for keeping track of the data associated with a track. And not ideal, but you can kind of see it up here. What we have is the first line shows how long the intro to the track is. So actually, if I bring up the audio file as well, this may help. Open with Audacity. If you ever need to play around with audio, I mean, okay, if you're a proper music or sound effects person, you have some proper software for this, but if you just want to play around and chop some audio files up occasionally, then Audacity is a pretty good choice for that. So basically we have this track here. Can you hear that? Okay, hopefully you can hear this now. Let me know in the chat, by the way, if my audio levels are off. It's kind of hard for me to get all of this stuff piped through correctly and know exactly how it sounds for you all. yeah, so we have this audio file, and you can see there's a bit of time in the beginning before the beat really drops, like this thing here. Oh, you know what? It's actually longer than that. Why is that working? You know what? I'm probably looking at the wrong file, and it's actually this one. Yeah, okay, here's the real file. Anyway, so we specify how long the intro is, and then we just kind of assume that the song has a regular tempo after that. So, you know, songs kind of break down into bars with like 4 beats in them. This whole thing, if you know any music theory, which I know very little of, but I know that bars are kind of broken down into 4. So, you know, you have like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So this tells us when the song kind of starts, when the bar structure starts in the song. This tells us the BPM, beats per minute. And from that, we can figure out any timing stuff, right? Like how long is a bar? What's the space between the beats? And that's ultimately how we drive this visual stuff, right? So if we know how long the song's been playing for and how long the intro to the song is and what the BPM is, we can tell how far through the song in terms of like bars and beats we are. And that's what the nodes in Guitar Hero style games tend to correspond to. Yeah, so that's how we do that. And then the next we kind of just specify here for each, we pull this up larger again, we just kind of specify for each bar which of the 3 notes, A, B, and C, lie on different points here. Yeah, so this is kind of a regular beat where the A beat comes down every so often, but we can have any other pattern that we like in here. I think the way we've done this, actually, if I just do A, it's kind of equivalent to the top one. Because, you know, you can break bars down into 4 or 8ths or 16ths or 32ths or 64ths. So what we do is we just look at the number of things in the line and assume that those are like evenly spaced over the bar. So if you have lots of really fast notes and you need lots of precision, then you can create, you know, like a really long line here, and it will kind of spread those out evenly across the bar. So it's a pretty convenient format for us to work with in terms of specifying all of this stuff. Okay, here's the one we're actually using, right? Yeah, this has some actual patterns. Okay, you can see I changed the zeros out for dashes because that just was visually nicer for me to kind of look here and try to compose these things. Yeah, so that's that. That's the kind of data entry. So if we flick back to the code, see that we can like load the audio data, load the audio file. This is like loading the track metadata, if you like. These colors are really just some constants. The problem is you can't use this color function up here, even though I'd like to just define these things up here. It's going to throw an error just due to a quirk of how processing works. So yeah, if I try and run this, we'll get an error about color stuff probably, or not. It's kind of a bit of a tangent and probably not the best way to explain this stuff, but yeah, it won't like if we define our colors up the top, because that's just not fundamentally how processing works, except it just seems to have worked. So am I talking rubbish? Okay, that works. That's nicer. Problem solved. Maybe it's because I can't make it final. It doesn't like that. To do with when they're initialized. No. Well. Okay. All of my worries for nothing there. This works just fine. So we define our list of colors for track A, B, and C. So kind of red, a green, and a kind of blue color. Awesome. So yeah, so we label some of this stuff. So we have some timing related stuff. visual related stuff, and then we have some main kind of state here, or assets, if you like. So at the music track, we have the metadata, and we have the image for the little pod thing that appears in these tracks, which is just this thing here. So the image is kind of grayscale, and we just tint it different colors for the different tracks. We could have just used a separate image for each, but you know, who cares? This works, and it gives us a bit of control over the colors and stuff like that. So we do this kind of setup. This commented outline, as I was trying to lay out the position of the different notes in the track, this just allowed me to kind of skip ahead, so I wouldn't have to wait when I made a change and restarted for it to kind of cycle all the way back to the point that I was trying to edit. So that's kind of just a debugging thing. But start the music here. Now in our main draw thing, so the way processing works, by the way, if you're not familiar, is there's a setup function that's called once when the program starts. There's a draw function which is called every frame, so you know, 30, 60, 100 times frames a second, whatever it may be. And we just grab the timing information from this music track. So what this will return is just the number of seconds the track has been playing for, which is very handy for us because we drive all of our animation off of that, right? So rather than trying to keep track of time ourselves and maybe go out of sync, we just always ask the sound library, hey, how far exactly through the track are you? And then that's where we kind of, how we draw all of the visuals and stuff to exactly kind of align with that. Yeah. So what's pos is like, you know, that's what it really is. So then we have some code here for drawing the track. It's a little bit hairy, but nothing too crazy. So you kind of want, what this does is it kind of moves it. If you notice where the sort of central point is, or the like nexus point of all of these audio nodes, it's kind of down here, right? These things are like centered horizontally, but then this is towards the bottom of the screen, meaning we get to see a good sense of what's coming up ahead in the track. So that's all this does, is it shifts us over halfway across and 3/4 of the way down the screen, so that becomes our 0, 0 coordinate, if you like. And then we just rotate here to kind of apply the 3D effect. We kind of take the whole screen and just tilt it away from us in 3D space. And then all the rest of the commands pretty much draw this whole track thing just as if it was 2D, right? They just draw lines like this, things moving like this, but the 3D little perspective we apply kind of maps that down to something with a more of a 3D look to it. Yeah, so we're just sort of figuring out here the position of each bar and each kind of note within that bar. We do a bit of culling type stuff here. So let's actually kind of belongs here to me, I think. Yeah, this is just some kind of like spacing and layout type stuff, right? If you really want to see this being built up in detail, you can check the previous stream, but it just kind of figures out, you know, this spacing between these things like this, and you know how long a bar is in terms of like this distance here. Just kind of calculating those pretty arbitrarily, but just in a way that looks somewhat reasonable. What we're doing here is basically culling. So culling generally means not drawing or processing stuff which is outside of the screen. So we don't want to draw all the notes and lines and stuff for things which are yet to be scrolled onto the screen or have already kind of scrolled off the bottom. Yeah, so these are drawing like horizontal lines. So we notice these grey lines here, that's what's being drawn there. Then we draw the hits, which are, the notes, same thing really. Yeah, we don't draw hits have been triggered already. One thing I'd like to do to juice this up is to have some kind of animation or a little bit of fanfare. So, this will probably change to be something a little bit more fancy, but for now, this kind of works. Yeah, so then we just draw the thing at the right position in the right color using our standard image. And that's pretty much it. So then we just draw line to indicate, hey Hamida, how's it going? So right now we have something basically playable, and I'm just running back through the code to kind of explain how everything works. So we're loading some audio, which hopefully you can hear on the stream. We're also loading a file which specifies where all these notes land, like musically. And we have some code, which I'll walk through in a second, to kind of handle the input and detect these hits, right? You can kind of see at the bottom, it's like logging out stuff, and if I just do junk, then I get a load of bad hits. So we'll be able to build some like scoring and failure on top of it. But probably the hard part of like loading the track and syncing the gameplay and the audio, the input, is done already. So the core's there. This stream is pretty much just going to be adding a bit of polish and juice to this. Yeah. So when a key is pressed, we need to determine which